Hello, FreshPanths here, and welcome to my unit review on Shanna, the Sprightly Flier, a playable Pegasus Knight originally from Fire Emblem 6, The Binding Blade.
Hey, it's the Chief! You're the Chief, right? Right.
Shanna is a Blue Lance flying unit. Her base stats are 39 HP, 30 attack, 35 speed, 25 defense, 29 res, with a 158 base stat total. Shanna has a Super Boon in defense, earning 4 defense instead of the usual 3, with a Super Bane in res, losing 4 res instead of 3. While Shanna's speed is amazing, and her resistance and HP stats allow her to tank some mages, she is however set back by her subpar attack and defense. She may require buffs, skills, or other high might weapons to offset her low attack. Despite that, Shanna's base kit uses her speed and resistance to her advantages. For example, her weapon, she wields the Killer Lance. Apart from being available for refinement to the slaying variant, the weapon does not add much to her attack. Instead, her lance is useful to lower the charge of her default special, Iceberg. Together, these two skills allow Shanna to use her good resistance to deal damage to offset her low attack. For her passive skills, starting with her B slot, she holds Desperation. In tandem with her high speed, all Shanna needs to do is meet the HP requirement for this skill to activate. Finally, to fill her C slot, she has Threatened Speed. This skill requires Shanna to be within 2 spaces of her enemy. It might help in avoiding or activating doubles, but Shanna is a little too frail to make good use of this skill. Shanna is not the only one who makes good use of her base kit. Through inheritance, many other units make use of her skills, with Desperation being the most notable. Now, let's get to some recommended builds, starting with a budget build. Keeping investment low, this is the typical Killer Lance build. However, if the might of the weapon is too low, you can opt to spend some resources to upgrade to the Slaying Lance variant. Thanks to the reduced cooldown of the weapon, the goal of this build is to activate Shanna's special, Iceberg, to make up for her low attack. For the A slot, Fury is recommended as it synergizes well with Shanna's initial B slot, Desperation. If Fury isn't available, Darting Blow, Death Blow, or even the Attack plus 3 or Speed plus 3 skills are also welcomed options. For the C and Sacred Seal slot, go with skills that help with Shanna's attack and speed. Otherwise, just go with any skills that buff teammates. For the Boon, go for either attack or speed, and for the Bane, minus defense or HP. Moving on, let's look at some player phase builds. There are 2 player phase builds that I would like to make note of, a Brave Lance set and a Fire Sweep Lance set. For the Fire Sweep Lance set, you safely chip away at an enemy, then retreat. Contrasting that, the Brave Lance set, even though it's a little bit riskier and requires a bit more investment, there are more options available. In addition to chipping away at an enemy, you can instead go for the Quad Attack build, activating 5 cooldown specials more easily, opening up to a bunch of shenanigans you can do. Overall, while I personally favor the Fire Sweep Lance set, both builds are great options. With that said, however, for the A slot skill, Swift Sparrow is ideal, but Life and Death or Fury are also good options. The B slot skill is usually hit and run or drag back, but for the Brave Lance set, you can choose to go for Desperation. The C slot can be any buffs you wish, but if you run Swift Sparrow over Life and Death, you can choose to run a Ploy skill. For the special, while both builds can use Luna and Gale Force, the Brave Lance set in particular uses Gale Force a lot better. If these options are not available and you're not running Life and Death, Shanna's default Iceberg or Glacies are alternatives. Finally, for the Boon and Bane, I personally prefer plus speed minus defense, but an attack boon is also good. Now, moving on to our final build, an enemy phase anti-magic build. For the weapon, we use Berkut's Lance Plus with a res refinement. For the special, Iceberg, Glacies, or Moonbow are all good options. The A slot skill is the ever so expensive Distant Counter. The B slot skill is either Guard or Quick Riposte, choosing Guard if you're worried about the enemy special being activated. We then have a Ploy skill taking the C slot, Otherwise, it's a flexible slot. Finally, for the Sacred Seal slot, if you use Guard in the B slot, use Quick Riposte. If instead Quick Riposte is your B slot, use Distant Defense. As for the Bane and Boon, we take a Res Boon with a Bane and Defense. Keeping in mind that this is an enemy phase build, positioning Shanna and the rest of the team is important. Taking advantage of Shanna's good res stat and improving that with Berkut's Lance during combat, Shanna should have an effect of 40 or more res. Now that I've shown a few builds, let's move on to my final thoughts on the Sprightly Flyer. Immediately comparing Shanna to the other Blue Lance Fliers, she doesn't have the offensive prowess of Cordelia, Tana, Hinoka, or Est. Nor does she have the defensive capabilities of Tsubaki and Florina, with Shanna sharing similar stat spreads with Claire and Katria, and being the only available unit with Desperation 3 at 4 stars. It can be difficult to recommend to anyone that building a Shanna is worthwhile. But if you do summon her and decide to not use her for skill inheritance, give her a chance, because to her, you will always be her chief. Here is my Shanna, and this is my unit review on the Sprightly Flyer.